David Moore, ABC World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast, now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted, now on Disney Plus. Every night, tonight the breaking news on this Monday night, this major storm, hundreds of accidents, snow, ice, and freezing rain sweeping in. And now the potential for undoreister forming as it pushes into the northeast. Dangerous driving, the accidents on the highways, records no fall in multiple states. More than 75 million Americans under alerts right now. Ginger Z is standing by with the forecast. Also tonight, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth undergoing scrutiny for authorizing 2 strikes on an alleged drug boat. The first strike taking out the boat tonight, questions about the second strike reportedly targeting 2 survivors. The Washington Post reporting Hegseth ordered his team to kill everybody on board the boat. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle now asking serious questions tonight. And what President Trump is now saying about that second strike? Tonight, President Trump's MRI. The White House now revealing what the MRI examined after the president said he had no idea what it was for tonight. In New York City, the high-stakes hearing for CEO murder, suspect Luigi Mangione smiling in court, now his defense team, on what evidence they're now asking be thrown out, the deadly National Guard. Ambush near the White House, tonight news on the surviving Guard member, what he did in that hospital room, and what we're now learning about the suspect overseas tonight, U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff on his way to meet with Vladimir Putin in Moscow. The key question that remains the urgent search for a missing high school football coach in the middle of an undefeated season. The U.S. Marshals now involved warning the coach could be armed. The images tonight, the 500-pound surprise under the house tonight with Simon Cowell is now saying about his insults on those early days of American Idol. And it's that time of year, our Made in America Christmas is back 14 years and counting your ideas coming in. And we start tonight with one that's growing nearly as fast as our Made America Christmas. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David York. Good evening, and it's great to have you with us. Nor'easter puts 75 million Americans on alert for snow, ice, rain. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. We do begin tonight with this cross-country storm across the heartland, the Midwest, and now pushing into the Northeast. In fact, a possible nor'easter could form from this tonight. More than 75 million Americans under winter alerts at this hour, snow, ice, and freezing rain moving from Kansas to New York to Maine. The system could drop up to a foot of snow in parts of upstate New York and New England. Traffic inching its way through heavy snow on I-370. This is in Bridgeton, Missouri, near St. Louis. Ice and freezing rain causing hundreds of accidents across Oklahoma. It was slow moving through heavy snow near Syracuse, New York. These are images from Marcellus, New York over the weekend. Tonight, the storm causing thousands of flight delays across the U.S., Chicago and Denver among the hardest hit. Ginger Z tonight with the forecast as it now hits the northeast of the potential for a nor'easter now, and geobies of the need as leading us off with the images coming in already. Tonight, a powerful new cross-country storm slamming tens of millions from the Midwest to the Northeast, with heavy snow and ice causing widespread travel disruptions, at least 22 states under alert. It'll be a little dicey out there, but we'd be treating the roads throughout the storm. In Oklahoma, freezing rain and ice causing commuter chaos this morning. More than 300 crashes reported, at least 2 people killed. There were 3 wrecks that are so one with more upside down, and it was nightmare. In Des Moines, Iowa over the weekend, this the flight from Detroit sliding off the end of the runway moments after landing. Fortunately, no injuries were reported. Chicago getting more snow tonight after the snowiest November day on record, 4 inches falling on Saturday of the nearly 3,500 flights canceled nationwide since Saturday. More than 1,000 were at Chicago's airports. Our flight was supposed to leave at 2:20 and it just kept getting delayed. We knew like on Friday. I was like, oh, this might be like pretty bad, but I didn't know it was going to be that bad. And David, major airports in the Northeast are bracing for possible delays as this potential nor'easter is set to hit within the next 24 hours. David, it is December 1st. Gio Benita is leading us off tonight. Gio, thank you. Let's get right to Chief Meteorologist G. DZ back with us after the holiday. Hope it was a good one. Good to see you again, Ginger. Same to you, David. And here, as so many people are back home, I know my kids are 2 of those that are hoping for a snow day tomorrow. So let's talk about if that's possible. Winter weather advisories are out, and you can see where they are from St. Louis to Indianapolis, Cincinnati, over to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. But that winter storm warning, that pink color from Hunter, New York, up to Bangor, Maine, that's where the heaviest snow will end up falling. So those kids, they definitely have the shot at doing it. Let's time it all out, because that's the important part of people are getting around to work or commuting tomorrow morning. You see the heavier rain right now. That's in parts of northern Mississippi, Alabama, but the snow is flying in Chicago. What will happen is these 2 will kind of merge together, and you're going to end up with Pittsburgh being really tough to get around tomorrow morning. It'll start up in Scranton or New York, even as a mix, and then go over to rain, especially at the coast up to Boston to tomorrow afternoon, heavy rain at times. And that's when it becomes more of a nor'easter, that heavy snow on a 6 to 12 inches goes from, say, the highlands of Maine back to the Pocono State. Ginger Z with us here on a Monday night. Ginger, Pentagon faces war crime accusations after September attack on alleged drug boat. We appreciate it tonight. The White House defending Secretary Pete Hegseth, who was under growing scrutiny after authorizing 2 strikes on an alleged drug boat. The first strike taking out the boat. Tonight, questions about the second strike reportedly targeting 2 survivors. The Washington Post reporting Hegseth ordered his team to kill everybody on board the boat, while makers from both parties asking serious questions, particularly about that second strike. And what President Trump is now saying about the second strike. Here's Martha Raid. It's tonight. Tonight, the Pentagon facing accusations of war crimes after a second strike on a boat carrying suspected drugs. Drug traffickers off the coast of Venezuela. This video from September 2nd shows the first hit on the boat. But tonight, questions are growing about a second missile that was fired. According to the Washington Post, it was targeting 2 survivors who were clinging to the wreckage. Tonight, members of both parties sounding the alarm, saying international law prohibits killing enemy combatants who no longer pose a threat. The Post reporting that at the outset reason was that the president of the state of the operation, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, had ordered his team to kill everybody on board the boat. Hegseth has called the Washington Post report fabricated, saying the military acted in compliance with the law of armed conflict. Overnight, President Trump said he didn't know anything about the second strike, adding he wouldn't have wanted it. But today, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed there was more than one strike on the boat. She didn't confirm or deny that survivors were targeted, Leavitt saying the strikes were authorized by Hegseth and carried out by the mission's commander, Navy Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley. On September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed, and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated. ABC Rachel Scott pressing, asking how did those two survivors present a threat to the U.S.? And what imminent threat would two survivors pose who were clinging presumably to the wreckage of that boat? Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law. Tonight, Democratic and Republican lawmakers are the voters demanding answers. You know that is against the Geneva Conventions. That's against the laws of war, which we should always be abiding by. We're the United States of America. We have to hold our people to a higher standard. This is really serious. And David, tonight, in a rare bipartisan statement, top Republicans and Democrats are vowing to get to the bottom of this and determine the facts. And while the White House defended the September strikes today by mid-October, when an other suspected drug boat was hit, the survivors were rescued and returned to their home countries. David, Martha Raditz, live at Washington, Martha. White House says Trump's October MRI results were perfectly normal. Thank you. We do have news tonight on President Trump's MRI. The White House now revealing what it was for, what it looked at, examined after President Trump said he had no idea what the MRI was for. Here's Rachel Scott. Tonight, the White House releasing the results of the MRI President Trump underwent in early October during a checkup at Walter Reed Hospital. The White House had not initially disclosed the test. The president later acknowledged it happened. We had an MRI, and in the machine, you know, the whole thing, and it was perfect, but the details were sketchy. I have no idea what they analyzed, but whatever they analyzed it well. And they said that I had as good a result as they've ever seen. Tonight, the White House physician says the MRI covered President Trump's heart and abdominal area and declared it perfectly normal, saying all major organs appear very healthy and are functioning within normal limits with no acute or chronic concerns. And David, the White House had faced questions about why President Trump received this MRI during an annual checkup. The White House census was a preventative measure and standard for what they described as an executive physical for the 79-year-old president. And David Rachel Scott live at the White House tonight. Luigi Mangiani's defense asks judge to toss key evidence in alleged United Healthcare CEO shooting. Rachel, thank you in New York City tonight. The high-stakes hearing for CEO murder suspect Luigi Mangiani. He was seen smiling in court today until video of the shooting was played before the judge, and tonight his defense team, and what evidence they're now asking be thrown out. Here's Aaron Petersky tonight, nearly a year after the assassination-style killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson on a New York City street, accused murderer Luigi Mangiani back in court, trying to get key evidence thrown out. The camera catching Mangiani in a gray suit with a smile on his face, but later showing no reaction while watching video of the 50-year-old father crumpling to his death on the sidewalk. The Ivy League grad also saw footage of his arrest at a Pennsylvania McDonald's where the manager called 911 saying customers recognized the bushy eyebrows and thought he looked like the CEO. Shooter in New York. But defense attorneys say police had no warrant to seize and search Mangiani's backpack, arguing the contents cannot now be used against him, including a red notebook in which prosecutors say Mangiani revealed a plan and a motive, writing, "I finally feel confident about what I will do. The target is insurance. It checks every box." But they say the backpack also contained the murder weapon, a 3D printed gun and silencer. Today, prosecutors offered a supporting witness, a Pennsylvania correction officer who testified Mangiani talked to him about having a pistol and it was 3D printed. Mangiani has pleaded not guilty. David and his attorneys are also trying to omit certain statements he made to police during his arrest. This hearing could go on for days. Investigators search for motive after deadly National Guard ambush David Erickertersky with us tonight as well. Thanks, Aaron. Tonight, that deadly National Guard ambush near the White House. We have news on the surviving Guard member, what he was able to do in that hospital room, and what we're now learning about the suspect tonight. Here's Pierre Thomas. Tonight, one of the National Guard members attacked in Washington, D.C., showing encouraging signs, giving a thumbs up to a nurse when a nurse asked if he could hear. We were told that he also wiggled his toes. 24-year-old Andrew Wolf, one of the two National Guard members ambushed last week, is still in an area hospital in serious condition. This is a solemn memorial grows at the scene of the shooting for Sarah Bexrow, who died on Thanksgiving Day of her wounds. Tonight, the man suspected of ambushing them, 29-year-old Ramanullah Lakinawal of Afghanistan, remains hospitalized and under heavy guard as authorities race to determine a motive. A national and international terrorism investigation intensifying as the FBI conducts interviews and pours due documents and communications. Sources telling ABC News the suspect worked with the CIA during the war in Afghanistan and came to the U.S. in 2021 under the Biden administration. He was granted asylum under the Trump administration this past April, but the sources tell ABC News he was unemployed and has recently been impacted by the death of one of his Afghan commanders. Growing isolated and distant from family and friends, the suspect now faces first-degree murder, but David authorities have been unable to have his first court appearance because he remains hospitalized under that heavy armed guard. U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff to meet with Putin to present a peace plan. Pierre Thomas in Washington. Pierre, thank you. Overseas tonight, the war in Ukraine. U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff is scheduled to be with Vladimir Putin in Moscow tomorrow. Of course, the question, will Putin be willing to make concessions now to accept this U.S. peace plan? The source telling ABC News the Russians are refusing to agree to a ceasefire unless Ukraine seizes territory. When we come back on this busy news night, the $1.45 fee you could face at the airport and when it starts. Also tonight, the U.S. Marshal is now involved in this search for a missing high school football coach disappearing in the middle of that undefeated season. And what his family is now saying. Also, the massive visitor found living under a home. The family had no idea he was there at how long. And our Made in America Christmas is back tonight. We want your ideas. You're one thing that will help create an American job, and you have to see what we found tonight growing almost as fast as our Made in America Christmas in a U.S. Marshals offering $5,000 reward in search for Virginia football coach wanted on child porn charges moment. Tonight, U.S. Marshals are now offering a 5-day $5,000 reward for a missing Virginia high school football coach. Authorities say Travis Turner wanted on charges involving possession of child pornography and using a computer to solicit a minor. His family says he was last seen walking into